Hey yo, what a div, y'all. Let's get right into it. So, after doing my Divine Exile run, I decided to immediately go reroll into trade, right? Second character immediately, making it all. This game is pretty fast. If you haven't experienced it yet, you should try it out. It's actually extremely fast. Even given the fact that I did it as basically a fresh start because I went to trade instead of SSF, it's very fast. And I figured I'd try the new character out, Selena, because, well, I had heard that she was nuts and I wanted to see about it for myself. And, well, okay, so she is nuts, but like not my type of nuts, if I'm being honest. She's a good character. This build is extremely strong. What you're watching the video for, you've probably seen stuff about, or you've seen like on the ladder, like going crazy. She is really strong, and Icebound beam on her is insanely strong. Just not my cup of tea. So I kind of want to take this video to talk about why I like this build, why I don't like this build, what made me stick with this so far. What it looked like getting me to Traveler 8, because I took it to kill Traveler 8. I ran one Profound 8 on her, decided that I could actually run them, but it's going to take another like roughly 70 to 90% damage increase before I felt like it was going to be comfortable. And even then, I would want another 70 to 90% on top of that for me to be able to actually speed farm it. And it's not that she can't get that damage, it's that I don't like her playstyle enough to farm that money on her. Right. And so I figured this is a good time to cover the character in full because I pretty much have not talked about her on here at all. Like if you know about the characters because you've been on my Twitch watching me live, which, hey, look, if you want to see it live, you know where to go. That's in the description. But anyways, before we get into it, if you find this video particularly helpful, like, comment, subscribe, boost the video, all that good stuff. You know the deal. I get tired of saying all of it. It's annoying and it's cringe. I know. I know you guys don't like hearing it, but it's just like the algorithm loves it or whatever. So disgusting. Anyways, to actually talk about the character, we need to talk about what Selena does first, right? Her core hero trait, which names of these are not important. Just know that there are two forms to Selena: Bard form and Loud Song form. Forget Loud Song form ever existed, at least for this build. Loud Song form is fake news. It is media created to make you think there's something else to do with Selena. There's not. There is only Tide. How we get there's only Tide and channeling things while moving. Bard form allows us to use channeled skills while moving. This includes OG channeled skills such as Icebound Beam, where you might have seen Howling Gale variants of the character. There's been people playing with like Wilting Beam, etc. Right? You can move while channeling these skills, which is incredible, and that's really the focal point of this character. You take a 20% damage penalty on this skill to do so, but again, you get to move as a result of this, and that's just the biggest buff a skill could get, quite frankly. Being able to move while playing a channeled skill was like what was the biggest downfall of certain channel skills. That's why if you saw a channel skill, it was usually something like mind control or savage charge used to trigger other skills or like whirlwind, etc. Right now, I can take Icebound Beam and move with it. So that's Selena, and then she has a number of buffs on her hero traits based around this buff called Tide, which has to do with the water that she can leave around while either originally it's when casting a skill normally and turning it into a ball and shooting it at something, that puddle that you then stand on and get a 4-second buff that gives you damage, which then gets transformed into a puddle that gets left behind you while you're sliding around channeling and gives you the same buff, as well as then debuffing enemies that stand on it. And then we scale its duration and we scale its effect through the rest of the hero talents to just give us a lot of naturally easy to come by damage that requires nothing besides slide on top of the enemy every so often. Oh no. Okay, so very strong character. Icebound Beam, very interesting skill. Because it does not do damage with the beam. Well, the beam does damage, but like that, it does not do nearly as much damage as the actual projectiles it shoots. Both in the sense that there are just the numbers for the projectiles are just better, but also more importantly, the projectile shotgun. Right? If I fired 4 projectiles, they would all do damage to one target. If I fired 8 projectiles, they would all do damage to one target. You see where I'm going with this, right? So that's why the links for this skill are, multiple proj, greater multiple proj, and then other useful support such as guard support, which is a decent damage support that also gives us a huge amount of defensiveness. Or you add in refracting beam and channel preparation early on. I want to talk about channel preparation really quickly because of a mechanical thing with this skill. This skill, Icebound Beam, only does its damage pretty much through the projectiles, especially once you've changed your links to include projectiles and greater projectiles. Like before that, if you don't have those projectiles, those supports in, your beam does a decent and reasonable amount of damage. But when you're actually scaling the character, when you're starting time works and whatnot, you're basically just scaling projectiles. And so all of your damage comes from hitting your maximum channel stacks. And that's why uh, channel prep is very important, because the skill shoots projectiles at max stacks and then it resets itself. So adding min channel stacks really adds that. We use quick ritual in our talent tree as a major talent, like the big one, the one that feels like a keystone almost. And that's for +1, and this gem for +2, which then helps us have more minimum channel stacks to work with. That you will then upgrade later on. You will then eventually get wind breath dispersion +1 to make it so that you're always at minimum always, and that's literally a double damage increase, because instead of casting projectiles on every other cast, you are now doing it on every cast. And then at +3 on your wind breath dispersion, you get to drop channel preparation altogether in favor of another support. And that's like how your support links go. All your supports are dedicated to the skill. Also, refracting beam, in case you're curious, it does give just a really good amount of damage, but it also gives us +2 chain or jumps. Jumps in this game, chain if you're familiar with PoE. That's where that comes from, and that's just to help the clear out a little bit. And I mean a little bit. It does something, and the clear would be miserable without it, but the clear is still not particularly fantastic. I'm being honest. So baseline mechanics and the skill covered. I'll go in game in a little bit to talk about how my gears actually set up to scale the character. I need to talk about why I don't actually like this character that much. Because I kind of told you guys, like, oh yeah, here's how it works. Why don't you like it? Really, I waited this long so that you could see the footage that's playing in the background while I'm talking to you about it. So I can tell you about how I don't rock with the clear. The single target is incredible. The bossing feels very, very comfortable. I've always liked, the fact that auto aim and like high mobility playstyles exist in this game, especially for bossing purposes. You just set up your character to be easy on your hands in terms of actually playing it, so that you can focus on dodging, like especially Traveler, as the fight goes longer and longer. Those fucking portals at the top that shoot beams onto the ground, being able to dodge those very comfortably was very, very nice. Having a low execution requirement for the character itself is extremely comfortable. But this build is not the only build to do that. That's a hallmark of this game at this point. And so I'm not like using that as too large of a big positive, besides the fact that I got to play a skill that I haven't played yet, because channeled skills weren't able to do this before. But the clear is not great. It takes a lot to get the movement speed on this character to work. Like you've probably seen a lot of characters, especially if you're looking at like the ladder for Selena's, and you see people with these insanely high damage characters, or they're putting up like 3K plus on the board and whatnot. Or like you look even at their actual characters, and they like a lot of people cut out amenities on their character for damage. And I feel like that's like, okay, yeah, it clears content, but it means your character's super slow, and you interrupt your channel procs if you have to use your movement skill. Like Blink is used in the character as an emergency movement, or like as a there's nothing nearby movement, but you do just want to have movement speed so that you can move quickly while shooting all the time. And that takes a lot to scale, and it's just, and again, the pops aren't there. You don't get like these gigantic ice imbues going crazy. You don't get like you don't get the old train Rahan from last season. You don't get what the split shot advanced Credo 3s are doing. Like you miss so much of the potential on the AoE front, and that's why I'm re-rolling. I just want more AoE, but for progression and bossing and initial farming of money, oh my god, this character was fantastic. And now, with all of that said, let me get in games so I can show you guys a couple more important things about the character before I set you on your way, right? Alrighty, so in game, a couple of things to note. One, settings thing about this character. This is the most important thing, honestly, for the playstyle purposes. In the battle settings, you can come down here and set your skill to auto channel and auto aim. And what that means is, when I press the skill button, I start channeling. I've only pressed it one time, right? I'm no longer pressing the button. Like you can tell because I'm very easily moving around here, right? Now, then I can click it and turn it off. Then auto aim means when I click it, look where my cursor is. I'm not aiming at the boss. I'm all the way over here. It's very, very nice. Also, just a quick damage test because this is perfectly timed. I can show you guys what the damage looks like on the character. Ones are a little messed up because I started leveling a new character already last night. After I finished Traveler 8 on this. You can see this is with my damage pet setup on. somewhere in the 3.5 billion range. It does spike up to like 3.8 to 4 billion with good crit RNG or, you know, good double damages. But generally speaking, good damage. Traveler Kill is very comfy. At least for me, I'm very comfortable with the fight. If you're not too comfortable with the fight, I would say get like another 30% damage, and you should be fine in there. That would just be like my recommendation. Alrighty, stop that. That's not the button to stop that. Stop that. Okay. Gear-wise, I feel like this character is pretty normal. There's only a couple things I really want to talk about on this character's gear. There will be a build code in the description, so you can like go through the character whenever you need to actually see how she's been played or how she's been put together up until at this point in time. There's a couple notes that I'm going to make here in this video that you should listen to though, because they will not be covered in the build code. And if you were watching my stream, it's not always super clear. The fact that I learned some better ways to put this character together after the fact, because I forgot that there were certain items I should check for. So, 1. Pretty much every gear piece looks like this chest piece or this glove, for example. Life or ES or both. Int 100% of the time. Percent damage or the other of life and int as my prefixes is like a really common theme across a lot of my gear. This one has flat cold, but like a lot of my gear is just straight up int. And then the good prefixes that keep me alive. Reses are cast speed on any piece that has it that I can fit it on. Movement speed on boots. Resistances otherwise. And if I don't need resistances, you'll see like, for example, here I have crit rate. Just to like try to get my crit rate up higher. We're only at 23% right now, but it's also because I need to get more crit damage. That would have been like the next line of scaling that I would have had to start working on. I also do have 3 dream crafting pieces, mostly just for extra power for going into Traveler. One of them does enable something really funny though. This is just movement speed, and this is just plus 1 focus blessing. This, however, is base ailment damage. And I got really excited actually on stream when I saw this. And the reason I did is because it enables a couple of different things. One, if you are a player who's using dirty tricks, if you're using dirty tricks instead of off the beaten track, which I'll talk about that in a moment, you do actually need to have base damage of all of the ailment types that you want to apply. So cold damage, like regular cold damage and regular lightning damage will proc frostbite, freeze, and numbed. But in order to apply ignite, trauma, and wilt, you actually need what is considered base damage with trauma, base damage with ignite. That has nothing to do with fire damage. It's called base damage with those. And there's a couple of different ways to get it. The way that I wanted to get it was in fact this Dreamcraft, and I tested out dirty tricks. It's actually going to be more of a pedigree upgrade for this character rather than a on the tree upgrade, unless I can get off the beaten track on my pedigree, because off the beaten track is just so unbelievably strong right now. There's a lot of power in being able to stack your auras up and you just force them in. And another way I could potentially get off the beaten track is if I were to go low life, and therefore we put my reservations on my life potentially, but like even that's a little risque. But it's just the general idea of what I would be going for at that point. Additionally though, it does enable like the other scaling mechanisms, like even just taking a little bit of ailment cost chance. That's why it's here in my tree. You can get to activate this node here, which is 120% damage. That is a T2 modifier on my staff, I believe, or the staff I was working on. But let me check that real quick to make sure I'm accurate with that. Yeah, it's like, okay, it's high end of type T3 just for hitting that, and you can get that on slates as well. So it's a very like huge damage multiplier you get there. There's also the pen per ailment applied that you get in Elementalist that can also be gotten on slates. This in fact gets me 24% pen from having this. There's also a slate mod for affliction scaling that works with this, but you don't actually really need it that much because you have so much pen if you just stack this, because this is on a slate. You could stack this higher. Like I have it here, and if you look at my slate here, it's right here. Ignore how ridiculous this slate is, by the way. But don't ignore it, but like just know I got lucky. I was not rolling that hard for it. I just hit a really nice slate. But like I had 4% per each, so I have 8% for each ailment. With all 6 ailments on, I'm doing 48% pen. It's absolutely insane. Very large fan. That was one of the things I went for my gear. Otherwise, gear's pretty standard. Like I said, uniques that are legendaries that are important. Blind vision, very, very strong item. If you can fit it in with your resistances and everything, this item will carry you quite some distance. You would only really want to drop blind vision when you're making moves to other setups, such as things that involves like Israfel's, the gloves or the body, or potentially both. Or you're trying when you're trying to make bigger character moves, or the lone walker boots, the precise aura boots, for example, when you start to lean into these other high damage uniques that legendaries that outperform this one, then you can then replace this helmet with, like, I made this helmet just a simple int, Fistic and as ES and suffixes that I like, and it would actually be a perfectly fine replacement. You still lose damage, right? Like you can see here, it loses 15% damage, but you get much more than that on something such as the, sorry about that, such as the lone walker boots, or yeah, lone walker's boots, because it gives you a level 20 precise aura, which this can include stuff like, look at that, precise elemental amplification, for example, or there's a precise projectiles in here, right? So that's really strong, and you could definitely get that. Plus, you get movement speed because you have no allies, and you can make sure that you're affected by 5 auras to get a huge amount of aura effect. And that's like a really, really big damage increase over your boots while not sacrificing your movement speed. But it would cost me the resistance on these boots, and therefore I would use the bigger damage increase of those boots to replace the hat. So I'm getting at. Wind Breath Dispersion, I mentioned it earlier in the intro. I'll mention it again real quick. Very, very strong item. One of the biggest upgrades you can get, although it is a little pricey. Like, I would not prioritize this too highly, but just know if you ever find yourself sitting on about what looks to be only 140, 150 FE, you can get a, this is not a +3 roll, by the way. This is a +1 roll that's showing in, on the sidebar there. You see, you can get yourself a +1 roll for like pretty easily. This will take you time either getting into T8 or doing a strong T7 farming strat. And then, which there are a couple of those, I'm going to cover those in a separate video potentially. I haven't decided yet. Kind of trying to make sure I don't burn myself out between playing a shitload and trying to make sure I make videos about this and other things. But this is a double damage increase. Remember this, with channel prep leveled up and quick ritual, you will be toggling between 4 and 5 channel attacks. This item puts you at 5 permanently. And that's the, like, at +1, and that's the big thing. You stop doing damage every other tick, so it's very, very important. And then remember, when you get it to +3 like I have, it then goes, you get to remove channel prep out of your links. That's why channel preparation is not in my links, and that's why I iterated earlier, you need to actually listen to the video rather than just take my build code and run, because you'll see things that look unattainable and don't make sense, and you mess something up because you copied me without knowing why I did it. Other thing, most important thing in here, actually, the reason I say that for last as a bonus, people who actually watch the whole damn video. Oversight. This weapon is stronger. These weapons are stronger than the staff I'm working on. Look at how much stronger my staff is going to need to be to compete with this stupid fucking legendary weapon. These two weapons each costed me about 85 FE. If you get them uncorroded, it's only going to cost you about 11 FE. To get +5, make sure you search for +5s on these oversights. It costs about 11 FE each maximum, and you get +10 skill levels, and therefore it'll be still competing with this staff, if not just straight up better than this staff still, which is insane to think about. So I basically just can't upgrade my weapon until I gem everything full of T1 crafting materials, which yeah, different timing altogether. I don't even want to talk about that yet. That's just it's ass to think about. So this weapon is a lot of damage and also gives us a lot of movement speed. It just means that you'll need to prioritize cast speed really heavily elsewhere, because you won't have, you know, T1 cast speed on the staff is up to 72%, and we won't have that on our weapons, which is why, you know, I have cast speed on every other slot that I can get it, as well as I made some interesting decisions around my slates to make sure that I got it with like things like this cast speed per agility blessing and more agility blessings, or, you know, this note here, 14% cast speed. Right, I think I had one more thing that I might have done for cast speed. Oh no, I didn't have anything too crazy for cast speed otherwise. But like, you really want to put priority on cast speed. That kind of wraps up everything I want to talk about here. I feel like everything else that I didn't say explicitly in this video is stuff that is very easily covered in the actual build code for the character, and does not need me to explain in more detail. That's why, you know, I made the video the way I did it. If you found this helpful, or if you just like the character, you know, again, feel free to like and subscribe, all that stuff. Ask any question about the character down below, and I'll try to get when I get the chance. If you are about to ask me about a filter, by the way, don't, because let me show you what I'm using for a filter. You see this thing right here called the intermediate official filter? Yeah, that's right, baby. I'm still using this fucking filter. Um, there's just too many things that other filters would end up hiding that I don't need to hide right now, and I don't see that much loot anyways, so I haven't bothered. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again if you want to see me live playing the new character, because I said that Selena is on her way out the door. Link in the description of my Twitch. I'll be live at some point. No guarantee as far as when, but I've been trying to, keep up with the streaming more regularly. Although potentially on the 30th / other days, I might be streaming the Bazaar as well, because that's also around now. And I've been waiting for this game since I was a youngin, man. So I've really been waiting on this one. But otherwise, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.